On the 10th of December 2020, Cyberpunk was released to the public, and let's just say it wasn't really met with any praise. Between bad clipping, people/cars appearing and disappearing right in front of you, think GTA Vice City, shading is horrible, random shadows that don't belong in places are common. Even with all visual extras turned off, I normally get 15 to 25 frames per second. If you buy toilet paper on Amazon, you will have approximately 96 rolls of toilet paper for the price of this game. I bought a digital copy, so I can't even wipe once. But getting further into the game, different glitches start to appear. It can be a small issue, such as driving a car and your player icon disappearing from the map, or a character's speech can't be heard. However, you then get to the glitches in time not passing for missions or not being able to use the phones as you're stuck in a phone call from a previous mission. It can also crash, but this is rare in most games do. Jesus Christ, a lot of people have a strong passion for this game, and I don't mean a positive passion, but a hatred for it. I was trying to look for a shorter response with basically a summary, but literally all of them were like a 5-page essay. I don't have any time for that, I have a video I have to make. With that being said, was this hate warranted? Let's find out. But first, a word from our sponsor. The sponsor is me, it's nobody. But we're close to 200 subscribers, so that would be kinda cool. Okay, let's just get started. So obviously in the beginning, yeah, Cyberpunk was hated a lot. But why is that? Well, for starters, bugs, glitches, game-breaking crashes, massive AI issues, visual shortcomings, immersion-breaking elements. That's just a little summary, there's a lot more to it. Okay, so now we know why people hated on it, but why did this happen in the first place? Like, why was the game like this? Well, here's a quick summary of that as well. First off, open world games are probably the hardest games you'll ever make, and here's why. You have to deal with all the buildings, all the people, all the vehicles going by, every living thing in your world to make the viewer feel immersed, and also adding animations to the people walking by, or the birds flying, or the cars moving. There are also a lot more things that can go wrong. Now, I'm obviously no game developer, but here's what I kind of know. Game development is like a pipeline. There's a lot of things that go into it to make it run properly. And one thing that can happen in these video games is that something goes wrong on this part of the map, which then affects this thing on the other side of the map, and then that affects something else, and everything is somehow interconnected and intertwined. This can then break part of the game, which means the developers have to go back in and fix it, and then might have to fix any issues after that. So basically, it's kind of like hell. Another factor that went into Cyberpunk's troubled development was its treatment of the game developers. Basically, they were constantly forced to work overtime and put in more hours for the same amount of pay. And especially when you're working in the more creative industry, this is horrible. See, executives think that if people put in more time and they throw more people at the project, it'll work itself out. But that's not really how it works. You know why? Because these people are people. They have other things in their life that they have to focus on, and it can be very taxing on them to put in this many hours, and they probably won't put in their best effort. That's also where these issues arise. It's a lot better to give people breaks for them to come back fully recharged and ready to work than to just keep them working without any breaks, because they're not going to make any progress, which sucks. Alright, so that's the basis of why Cyberpunk kinda flopped in the beginning. If you're curious and you want to know more, I recommend watching Matt McMuscle's video on the topic. It's a really good video. So, since Cyberpunk had a rocky release and wasn't very well received by the public back in 2020, how is it being received now in 2022? Well, honestly, a lot better. Cyberpunk may not be as popular as it was when it released, but it's doing a lot better, and the game is also a lot better. I mean, just listen to the reviews coming out now. Although it had a rough start, the game overall is amazing. I'm not finished yet. I try and complete as much side quests as possible, and most side quests are deep story driven missions, which feels like it's its own story by itself, almost like a main mission. It has the odd couple of frame drops, but the overall experience is great. I personally haven't had the game crash on me, nor have I had any game-breaking bugs. Stunning game. It is definitely what I expected after so long of development and huge advertising. It has so much to explore like no other game on the market. It does not feel linear in any way. Night City is a real city, full of life and many different places to visit. I have never played such a good game, and I hope that CD Projekt will make another game like this, even if we have to wait 5 years for that. While I didn't encounter any bugs that fully broke my my game in my initial Cyberpunk launch playthrough, there were plenty of annoying ones to be found. Here, however, with thousands of fixes in place, I think I maybe reloaded once to fix something stuck, but out of 30 hours, that's not so bad. Sure, you get the occasional odd glitch like a stretched out corpse or a guy standing on top of his motorcycle seat, but we are miles away from the launch era where bug compilation videos from the game were lighting the internet on fire. So yeah, I think that's pretty good evidence that Cyberpunk's reception has grown in positivity, and I totally agree. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't play Cyberpunk when it initially released 2 years ago. Not just because of the bugs, but I was focused on other games at the time. But about a week ago, I bought the game. You see, my friend recently bought it and he told me about it, and it was also half off, so yeah. The gaming market has also been kind of dry, which made me want to buy it even more, just to try something new. And yeah, that $30 was completely worth it. Personally, I wouldn't say the game is 100% fixed, but also, what game is? Every popular game that I know, hell, the biggest games out there have had glitches. 1, 2, 3, hell, even like 9 glitches isn't gonna ruin your life, okay? Now, when Cyberpunk first released, yeah, I probably wouldn't play it. Like, if the glitches are game breaking, then that's not a good thing. If they're immersion breaking, that's not a good thing, but it also doesn't ruin the gameplay itself. When I played Cyberpunk, I only encountered a couple of glitches, and they were mainly immersion breaking, like an NPC walking to their car or falling through the street, like very simple things. Nothing mind-boggling, and that's great. I also had no issues with FPS or the game crashing. It all went really smoothly. I'm currently in the somewhat beginning part of the story. I haven't really made it that far, but from what I can tell, it's really good. I think the missions are set up in a nice way and allow you to do new and creative things. One thing I like about the futuristic aspect is that there's a lot new tools and technology we can use to complete these missions. I mean cyberware. I also didn't realize this, but apparently there's 3 different modes, Nomad, Street Kid, or Corpo, short for corporate. I think this is really cool because it allows you to see different perspectives and be in different classes. Basically, the Nomads are part of a clan or a family that roam the Badland deserts around Night City. Street Kid, or the one that I chose, apparently know the streets, the gangs, the slang, and generally what's going on in the lower life aspects of the city. This one just kind of seemed like the coolest one and allowed me to explore the city, which when you're given an open world like this one, you probably want to do. Here's a quick story synopsis. V, the protagonist, has recently returned to Night City after a failed attempt at life in Atlanta. Basically, he helps out a bartender by settling a debt. The target is a high-end car which other members of the Night City street life are eyeing up for themselves. Alright, and finally, corpos are the fancy-dressing, unprincipled employees of the corporations. Being wealthy and persuasive, they can muster favors and resources beyond what most people can even hope. And that is the Cyberpunk fandom synopsis. Alright, so basically those are the 3 different life paths you can choose from. Not a bad selection, there's a lot of variety. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start with some things I didn't really like about the game. For starters, the driving felt a little bit clunky, like I felt there was too much overcorrection when steering. And I know I'm not the best driver, but come on. Combat. The fighting in this game felt a little light and stiff in my opinion. By that I mean, it didn't feel like there was much force behind my punches, like there was no life to them. I also wish the NPCs fought back a lot more and could go for a while, instead of just getting knocked out in like 3 swift punches. I also hate how vehicles and NPCs will spawn out of nowhere sometimes. Like when I'm driving, a vehicle will literally appear right on top of me and then I'll get slammed into it. That's something that happens in GTA 5 a lot as well. Overall, it's really fucking annoying. Sometimes there's lighting and shading trickery, but those are just nitpicks. I don't really care overall. Alright, even though I've stated them already, here are some positives about the game. I think the story's pretty well done, the gameplay's enticing, basically it keeps me wanting more. I like V as an overall protagonist. The world is huge and immersive. There's a good handful of enterable buildings. I think Cyberpunk is the perfect matchup in terms of graphics and lighting towards Red Dead Redemption 2. The NPCs actually feel like real people, with real lives that make you feel more immersed in the world. They don't make you feel like the main character with everyone around you being the side characters. You feel like another person, and that's pretty good game designing in my opinion. Oh, and this control exists in the character creator. Probably should have mentioned that. And that pretty much wraps up my opinion on this game. If someone were to ask me, should I get Cyberpunk 2077? I would say yeah. If this was the Cyberpunk released back in 2020, I don't think the game would have flopped. This is a good example of when game developers are given extra time, they can succeed and make a great video game. And that's really all Cyberpunk really needed in the beginning. extra time. It was only given 4 years. And I know some of you are probably like, what? 4 years? That's how old I am. That's a super long time. But yeah, game development takes a pretty long time, especially for a game of this complexity and this scale on a company that's this small. Remember, CD Projekt Red had just made Witcher 3, a completely different game than Cyberpunk, which means they couldn't use any other assets. They had to completely restart, rewrite their program. They had to do a lot of things. Also, the deadline for Cyberpunk was way less than what it was for Witcher 3. Come on, executives. Cyberpunk didn't really deserve this troubled development. Okay, that's it. That's all that was on the script. Oh wait, one last thing. Why can't you beat up children? This is very immersion breaking.